Imagine a grand feast in the heart of Valyria, back in the spring of 1457. The great hall is alive with 200 elegant ladies seated next to their lords, all draped in luxurious fabrics, sipping fine wines, toasting to the joys of Easter amid cheerful music and laughter. By the break of dawn, those lords will lie lifeless, their bodies pierced on tall stakes lining the palace courtyard. And these women, these sheltered daughters of the nobility, who had never known the feel of rough soil beneath their fingers, will be forced into a grueling trek toward the distant peaks. Among them is a young woman named Eleanor, just 23, married only 2 years. Her delicate hands have never lifted anything weightier than a crystal goblet. But in less than a week, those same hands will be mangled beyond recognition, skin torn away, nails ripped off, bones peeking through the wounds as she hauls massive boulders up steep cliffs to construct a stronghold for the very ruler who ordered her husband's death. Option 1 for the primary woman's name, Eleanor. Option 2, Beatrice. Option 3, Clara. I'll go well with Eleanor throughout this telling. Eleanor was just one of 200. She labored day after day until her fine garments disintegrated from the constant friction and filth, until nothing remained to shield her body from the elements, until she could no longer distinguish her own blood from the crimson stains on the rocks she dragged. Most of those women perished on that unforgiving mountain slope, and this was merely the start of the horrors. What Prince Victor Thorn inflicted upon women wasn't some unfortunate byproduct of conflict. It was deliberate policy. It was the core warning. It was the essence of his rule. He positioned mothers on stakes right beside their daughters. He ordered wives skinned alive for failing to stitch a flawless garment. He transformed the suffering of women into spectacles, so appalling that even the mighty Sultan of the vast Eastern Empire, the conqueror who toppled ancient Constantinople, glimpsed the aftermath and commanded his vast forces to retreat. The tales spun in modern stories portray a charming figure who woos ladies in shadowy fortresses. Reality delivered a tyrant who annihilated them in open plazas for all to witness. This is the truth of what unfolded, not centered on Victor, but on them, on the women whose stories the annals of history chose to bury deep. Chronicles glorify the tyrant, they erase the sufferers. That's the injustice we're setting out to correct here. Let me take you back to the origins of this profound darkness and explain why Victor came to see the torment of women as the ultimate path to unchallenged dominance. It all traces back to his youth. As a boy, Victor spent years as a captive in the courts of the Eastern Empire. There, he observed closely how fear could be wielded as a weapon. He saw how human forms could serve as living billboards for power. And he learned that the swiftest method to shatter a community was to first shatter its women, the hearts of families, the bearers of future generations. When he finally returned to Valyria, everything had changed. His father had been slain. His elder brother had endured unimaginable torture before being buried alive, all thanks to the betrayal of the very aristocrats sworn to protect them. The innocent child who had been taken away never came back. In his place emerged a hardened man, convinced that mastery over women equated to mastery over society itself, and that inflicting agony on them broadcast warnings impossible to disregard. And so he acted on that conviction, beginning with the spouses and kin of those who had destroyed his bloodline. Picture that Easter gathering in 1457. The leading families of Valyria assemble in Victor's grand palace for what they believe is a joyous banquet. The lords arrive in their most splendid attire, their ladies sparkling with precious gems, children running about with excitement, the air filled with merriment and song. They assume it's a time of reconciliation and unity. They're tragically mistaken. In the midst of the feasting, Victor rises to his feet and poses a simple yet chilling question. How many rulers have you served in your lives? Uneasy chuckles ripple through the room. Even the youngest lord has witnessed at least half a dozen princes rise and fall. The elders recount tales of 30 or more, each one undermined, assassinated, supplanted by yet another fragile figurehead. Victor absorbs their responses with a grave nod. That instability ends now, he declares. Suddenly, the heavy doors thunder shut. Armed guards flood the hall. Chaos erupts. In moments, the elder lords are hauled out to the courtyard, stripped of dignity, and hoisted onto sharpened poles. Their agonized cries pierce the night, echoing off the cold stone. Eleanor hears her husband's father pleading desperately for compassion. Then, abruptly, nothing but silence. For the younger lords and their households, Victor devises a fate far more drawn out. Still clad in their festive gowns of shimmering silk, the wives and daughters are bound in chains. Eleanor feels the cold metal bite into her wrists, drawing blood instantly. A rough guard shoves her forward, and she stumbles to the ground. The woman linked next to her, a kindly older lady named Margaret, wife of a minor earl, reaches out to steady her, whispering words of comfort amid the terror. Before the forced journey commences, Victor insists they bear witness. The courtyard has become a grotesque thicket of bodies. Some victims succumb swiftly, others linger in torment. Eleanor scans the horrific display until her eyes lock on her husband, Thomas. He's still breathing, weakly calling her name through parched lips. She strains against her bonds, desperate to reach him, but the guards hold firm. Tears stream down her face as she forces herself to watch, knowing this image will haunt her forever. Then the march begins, a punishing 50-mile trek northward through dense woods, boggy marshes, and relentless downpours. No provisions, no pauses for rest. These women, accustomed to luxurious coaches and soft cushions, now trudge barefoot over jagged stones and thorns. Feet blister and bleed from the first hours. Some falter early, collapsing in exhaustion. The guards show no mercy. They drag the fallen for a while, then abandon them when it slows the group. Predators claim the rest under cover of night. I want you to pause and truly envision this. Eleanor, who once spent afternoons in embroidered gardens discussing poetry and music, now struggles to place one foot in front of the other. Her fine shoes long gone, the sharp rocks cut deep. Beside her, a young bride named Lydia, only 18 and newlywed, sobs uncontrollably as infection sets in from a deep gash. Lydia confides in Eleanor during a brief halt. I was supposed to be planning my first child, not marching to my grave. Eleanor tries to encourage her, sharing memories of happier times, of dances and stolen kisses. But doubt creeps into her own voice. Another woman, a sturdy matron called Agnes, who had managed a large household with efficiency, takes it upon herself to help the weaker ones. She tears strips from her already tattered skirt to bind wounds, murmuring prayers under her breath. But even Agnes weakens as days blur into one another. One night, around a meager fire, the guards allow the women huddle together. Stories emerge in hushed tones. Tales of lost homes, beloved children left behind, dreams shattered. One lady, Sophia, recounts how she met her husband at a tournament, how he knighted her with a flower. Laughter mixes with tears, a fleeting moment of humanity amid the brutality. When they at last arrive at the crumbling ruins of Argenfort Citadel, perched precariously on a sheer cliff, Victor awaits them atop his horse, surveying like a king. You will raise these walls anew, he proclaims, with your own strength, stone by stone. Historical records from that era describe months of unrelenting toil. The elegant dresses fray and tear against the rough boulders, soaked in sweat and blood, decaying under constant rain. Soon, underlayers follow, leaving the women utterly exposed to blistering sun by day and biting frost by night. 200 noble ladies, once pampered and protected, now haul immense rocks up treacherous paths. Hands raw and bleeding, Eleanor's palms crack open within days. By the end of the first fortnight, numbness sets in. She can no longer grip properly, yet quitting means death. Beside her labors a former countess, Isabella, who had never so much as threaded a needle without aid. On the 12th day, Isabella slips on loose gravel, plummeting down the abyss. Her scream echoes long after her body vanishes into the mist below. The guards bark orders: no stopping, no mourning. Keep moving. Nights offer no reprieve. They curl up on bare rock, bodies pressed together for scant warmth. Like forsaken creatures, the mountain winds howl mercilessly. Many fail to awaken come dawn, frozen or succumb to fever. Guards casually drag the corpses aside, and labor resumes. Food. Whatever scraps the overseers toss: gnawed bones, moldy bread crusts, water from stagnant pools or rain puddles. Women who once had attendants serve gilded platters, now scramble in the mud for a sip, pushing and shoving in desperation. Let me paint a fuller picture of daily life there. Mornings begin with whips cracking at first light. Guards patrol, lashing any deemed slow. Eleanor forms quiet bonds with a few others, a small circle sharing burdens. One, a witty woman named Rose, tries to lighten the horror with dark humor. At least we're building something lasting, unlike our marriages. Fleeting smiles, then back to work. Injuries mount: broken fingers from dropped stones, infections turning limbs black. A young girl, barely 16, daughter of a baron, named Violet, develops a fever. Eleanor and Margaret nurse her as best they can with herbal leaves scavenged secretly. Violet deliriously speaks of her pony back home, her lessons in harp playing. She dies one dawn, eyes staring at the sky. The group weeps silently as her body is removed. Attempts at flight prove futile. A trio of women bolts one foggy evening, but trackers recapture them swiftly. Victor orders their execution before the assembly, a stark reminder that mercy is illusion. He observes from the growing walls above, occasionally riding down to inspect progress, his face impassive. When the fortress finally stands complete, only a scarce dozen women survive. They are retained as lowly servants within the very structure born of their agony, noble blood forgotten, lives reduced to endless drudgery on those same torturous stairs. But understand this deeply. Argenfort wasn't mere vengeance or retribution. It was spectacle. Victor ensured every prominent family in Valeria learned the fate of traitors' women. He sowed doubt in every marriage. If my lord displeases the prince, could I be next? Those survivors weren't just casualties. They were living propaganda, their broken forms a perpetual threat. And Victor's campaign against women extended far beyond enemies' kin. For common folk in Valeria from 1456 to 1462, existence was a nightmare of vigilance, especially for females. Victor viewed women as society's bedrock. Any perceived flaw, a wife's inadequacy, was a fracture demanding bloody repair. Consider this account from old travelers' tales. A humble farmer strolls a village path in a shirt deemed too brief, exposing his legs. In Victor's domain, this isn't mere sloppiness, it's indictment. Victor halts him. Have you a spouse? Yes, my lord. Summon her. She arrives trembling, a hard-working soul named Harriet, collused from fields and hearth, mother to several children, always stretched thin. Victor eyes her coldly. Why does your man appear as a pauper? No cloth in your home, hands unfit for labor. Harriet stammers explanations: infants needing constant care, crops demanding attention, endless chores leaving no spare moments for meticulous sewing. Victor's verdict is swift and savage. The torment inflicted lasts hours, the entire village compelled to observe. When done, her remains are elevated on a pole in the central square, lingering as an unforgettable admonition. Then, to the bereaved husband, I'll provide another wife. Ensure his garments reach proper length, or join her end. This became unwritten law etched in flesh. Unfaithful partners skinned publicly, kin forced to spectate, widows remarrying hastily hoisted at junctions. Women falling short of impossible ideals endured fates too ghastly for full chronicle. Another tale, a lady suspected of disloyalty dragged to the plaza. The prolonged violation and mutilation unfold before mandated onlookers. Afterward, the remnants impaled, a declaration that female autonomy is myth. Bodies serve husband, kin, ruler, defy, and suffer beyond words. Women withdrew indoors, venturing out only when unavoidable. Spouses obsessively inspected attire for flaws, afraid edge could doom. Mothers instilled in daughters. Invisibility is safety, perfection, or peril. This wasn't mythical bloodlust. This was calculated governance, terrorize half the populace to cow the whole. Was Victor shaped by his savage era, or did he transcend into unparalleled monstrosity? Share your thoughts below. But first, witness his atrocities against foes women. Winter of 1462. Victor has subdued internal rivals. His subjects cower. Now he eyes southward toward the Eastern Empire. Lacking numbers for outright conquest, he wages psychological war, inscribing threats on innocents, crossing the great river. His forces sweep village after village. What remains is eerie quiet. In a dispatch to a neighboring king dated early that year, Victor tallies coldly over 23,000 slain, not including those incinerated in dwellings or uncounted, families wholesale, none exempt. Yet slaughter was prelude. Survivors, chiefly women, children, elders, herded to squares. Expecting enslavement, they brace for that relative grace. Instead, Poles emerge, envision a riverside settlement. Assault concluded, resistors gone. Remaining huddled in dread, a mother, Clara, grips her teenage daughter tightly. Soldiers seize them, but together, separation would lack impact. Victor craves familial unity in death, mothers witnessing, daughters hearing final gasps, Poles blunt, oiled for gradual descent, gravity tormenting over hours, even days. Clara watches her child elevated first. The unnatural cries sear her soul. Her turn follows shortly, adjacent pole. Scouts later discover groves of the pierced, arranged by stature, kin clustered. Some yet twitch in breeze. This repeats across the waterway, scores of hamlets, tens of thousands displayed. The river runs red for leagues. By midsummer, the Sultan mobilizes history's grandest host, over 100,000, and advances to crush Victor. But Victor anticipates. Near the capital, the invaders halt in horror. Troops scream, flee, collapse. The Sultan approaches to behold a vast plain, mile by half mile, studded with 20,000 stakes of graduated heights, men, women, children grouped as families. An eyewitness chronicler notes the awe-inspiring vista for invaders and Sultan alike. Picture a surviving woman, impaled yet conscious, body yielding inch by inch, observing the world's mightiest force arrive, powerless to intervene. Her agony not lament, but missive. Corpses range from decayed husk to fresh, oozing. A handful stir feebly in heat. Odor precedes sight. Seasoned warriors retch. The Sultan, who felled empires, bathed in rivers of blood, surveys and withdraws. He reportedly concedes. Impossible to strip land from one executing such feats upon subjects. Not praise, capitulation. Victor triumphs. Cost innumerable mothers, daughters. The Sultan departs. The women endure on poles. Yet one final woman looms closest to Victor. Her conclusion bleakest. Nameless in records, merely his initial spouse. Spring 1462. Empire retreats, but Victor's sibling leads fresh assault on Argenfort, the edifice raised on noble women's torment years prior. His wife perches on ramparts. Below, the rushing river smashes rocks. Behind, fortress forged from suffering. Ahead, banners of betrayal. She comprehends captive women's lot, degradation, endless servitude. But she knows her husband's ways intimately. Stakes, cries, halls echoing past labors. Caught between evils. Legend claims she addressed attendants, better devoured by river fishes than seized by foes. She leaps, plunges hundreds of feet. Waters claim her traceless. The stream bears. Lady's River. To this day, Victor flees via hidden route. Later imprisoned, remarries, perishes in combat, his severed head displayed. Ironic end. But she escaped alone, Eleanor hauling until hands skeletal. Harriet obliterated over garment length. Marriott anonymous along river, embracing daughters ascending. His wife selecting waters over dual torments. These define Victor Thorne's era. Not courted, not eternally bound, not glamorized, obliterated. Popular fiction craves alluring menace, capes intrigue, immortality thrill. Truth polls anguish, women as canvases for gore, scripted decrees. Unsettling reality, it succeeded. Tiny realm repelled colossal empire 6 years. Not alliances, not tactics, but horror so targeted at kin that none bore it. Victor illuminated power's abyss. Extreme dread forges might. Shatter loved women to shatter foes. Query not his wickedness, many slew more. Query romanticization cape, teeth candlelit allure over revulsion. Erasure of victims' identities. We exalt tyrants, craft myths, merchandise icons. Sufferers fade to figures, echoes, faceless. Eleanor merits remembrance, her blood-cemented walls tourists admire. Harriet, slain for brevity. Riverside mothers clutching offspring. Nameless consort opting depths. They involuntary emblems. Minimum recall them. Today visitors ascend 480 steps to Argentfort. Snap pictures, purchase souvenir trinkets. Share vampire lore. Oblivious to trading mass interment. Stones born by Eleanor. By ladies whose finery dissolved in toil. By parents powerless as children tumbled, unallowed pause. Each stare upon anguish, each image atop sepulture, each grin where whales once rent air. Fiction offers allure and eternity. Truth, poles and oblivion. Now the distinction is yours. But Victor wasn't solitary in weaponizing female, directed cruelty. Centuries prior, an empire honed this to perfection, rendering Victor near lenient. What the steppe hordes unleashed on the ancient city's royal house warned eternity.